به سوی آزادی. گردهمایی بزرگ مقاومت ایران. پاریس، ویلپنت، اول تیر 1392، 22 ژوئن. به مناسبت 30 خرداد، عید آغاز مقاومت، روز شهیدان و زندانیان سیاسی، سال روز تأسیس ارتش آزادی بخش ملی.
Now it is my pleasure to give the floor, representing the British Parliament, to David Avis.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again we are gathered to demonstrate the genuine aspirations of the Iranian people, who are denied their true voice by a new fascist regime. The Iranian regime's election masquerade ended in a ludicrous result. The man who has come out as this regime's next president is known to the world as the man who was proud to say that he had duped the West in the nuclear negotiations and brought many years for the regime to actually escape punishment. His British interlocutor was Jack Straw, who I feel was a defender of appeasement towards an evil regime. He was also very upset that the NCRI exposed the Mullah's secret nuclear sites in Natanz and Iraq. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, we want to send a strong message to Khomeini that the international community will not be duped again. The era of your deception has expired. I want us to say that we recognise the NCRI as the only democratic replacement for the Mullah's regime, and we will make governments across the world recognise and respect that reality. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to end with these words. Just across the way, there is a display of photographs of martyrs from Camp Ashraf and from Camp Liberty. Shame on the world for remaining silent when they could have done something to save those lives. So on behalf of the British parliamentarians gathered here today, we will stand shoulder to shoulder with you until we get peace and justice for the Iranian people.
Okay, and now it is my honor to give the floor, representing the Canadian Parliament, to our friend Russ Hibbert.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Rajavi, dear friends, I'm proud to be here to tell you about Canada's actions in defense of freedom and democracy in Iran. I'm also here to tell you how we are standing up for the democratic rights of the PMOI MEK. Canada's parliamentarians have worked hard to draw international attention to the appalling conditions in Camp Ashraf and Camp Liberty. We've called on the government of Iraq to respect the rights of the people in the two camps, and I'm proud that my government has delisted the PMOI as a terrorist organization. Sadly, the intransigence of the Iranian regime has required more sanctions by Canada. The steady decline in Canada's bilateral relations with Iran is the direct result of the reckless and brutal actions of the regime. The Government of Canada has continued to take a strong actions against the regime and its elite by adopting and expanding its economic sanctions 4 times since 2010, reflecting Canada's view that the regime is the greatest threat to international peace and security in the world today. That is why on September 7th last year, Canada suspended diplomatic relations with Iran by closing its embassy in Tehran and expelling all Iranian diplomats from Canada. And most recently, on May 29th of this year, Canada imposed a further round of sanctions, including a complete ban on imports and exports to and from Iran. However, Canada has not and will never break off relations with the courageous and creative people who are the daily victims of the brutal Iranian regime. As Canadian parliamentarians, we remain deeply concerned about the situation of the PMOI in Iraq, and we call upon the Iraqi government to defend and uphold the international human rights of the Iranian refugee community still remaining in Iraq. As Canada's Prime Minister said just 9 days ago while speaking in the British Parliament, Iran is a profoundly malevolent regime that threatens us all and whose first victims are the Iranian people. Canada will continue to urge the international community to show steadfast resolve on Iran in the days ahead. Thank you. Merci.
Now it is my pleasure to call. It is my pleasure to call to the podium, representing the Spanish Senate, Senator José María Chiquillo.
Buenas tardes, amigos y amigas. Es muy difícil decir unas palabras de apoyo después de escuchar a tantas y tantas importantes personalidades de tantos rincones del mundo que están a vuestro lado. Pero para mí es muy fácil hablar ante tantas y tantas personas hoy porque lo hago desde el corazón, porque sé que vuestra causa es muy justa, muy noble, de luchar por la libertad y por la democracia. Estoy muy feliz de estar aquí entre vosotros. En diciembre del 2012 tuve la suerte de conocer a Mariam Rajavi y a todo su equipo y conseguir que una parte de mi corazón sea y esté a vuestro lado, porque entiendo que la justicia social, la igualdad, el respeto a los derechos humanos y sobre todo atender a las personas con los elementales respetos a su dignidad es una cosa, un elemento, un principio y un valor que nos tiene que unir a todos los amantes de la libertad de todo el mundo, desde Colombia a España, desde Australia y Nueva Zelanda a Perú, desde los países europeos de mayor tradición democrática hasta el último rincón del mundo. Tenemos que estar unidos por causas como la vuestra, la de la resistencia iraní, que solo quiere eso, justicia y libertad. En el Senado de España, y me acompañan hoy 12 representantes de las Cortes Generales Españolas, Congreso y Senado. En el Senado de España estamos elaborando una resolución un compromiso político para que sepáis, todos los iraníes, todos los corazones iraníes que creen en la democracia, una resolución que recoge los 10 puntos que tan magníficamente ha defendido aquí y defiende todos los días Mariam Rajavi, porque España está con vosotros. Y para concluir, voy a pediros un gesto, que levantéis el símbolo de la libertad de Irán. Os pido que todos levantéis el símbolo de la libertad de Irán. Y dos elementos que en él se recogen. El león, para que seáis fuertes como los leones, que de aquí salga un grito, un rugido de libertad, de democracia y de igualdad. Y el segundo símbolo es el sol, que brille el sol en Irán, que se vaya la tormenta del uranio y de los dictadores y brille el sol de la libertad, la justicia y los derechos humanos. Muchas gracias.
Asir Bekir, my dear friends, we are a delegation from a small island of Malta. My dear friends, tonight we are all Ashrafis. My friends, we support your call for a modern, free Iran. We support your call for free and fair elections. We endorse your call for a secular, democratic, non-nuclear republic in Iran. Do not give up. Justice will be done. Truth will prevail. Bashad. Onward to freedom. Onward to free Iran. Thank you very much.
Now, it is my privilege to call on the stage our President, Mrs. Mariam Rajavi.
Je voudrais vous remercier chaleureusement, Monsieur Alejo Vidal Quadras, pour tous vos efforts et toutes les délégations ici pour cette vaste campagne en faveur des résistants d'Ashraf et Liberty et les droits du peuple iranien. Vous êtes les vrais représentants de plus de 50 pays du monde. Merci pour défendre avec fidélité ces valeurs et ces principes. Votre vigilance et votre persévérance dans la défense de l'état de droit est une belle leçon pour tous les gouvernements et une source de fierté pour les peuples que vous représentez. Vous avez créé une nouvelle politique basée sur les valeurs humaines et la dignité. Votre choix politique est une réponse aux besoins du monde face aux menaces de l'intégrisme et du terrorisme, des mollahs atterrants. C'est la meilleure réponse à portée de la main. et avec le moins de prix à payer pour la paix et la sécurité dans le monde. Vos noms et votre courage resteront à jamais gravés dans l'histoire de l'Iran et du monde entier. Je voudrais aussi profiter de cette occasion pour remercier tous les participants de ce rassemblement pour votre solidarité avec le peuple iranien et les résidents de Liberty et Ashraf. Encore une fois, merci beaucoup de M. Vidal-Quadras et toutes les délégations.
And now all the delegations will raise their declarations of the majorities in support of the Iranian resistance.
I'd like to introduce to you again a man who has been a supporter of the Iranian freedom movement, who has been a supporter of the people of Ashraf and Camp Liberty. He is the former ambassador of the United States to the United Nations, John Bolton.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today. I want to address the ongoing question of the Iranian nuclear weapons program and the reaction in the West to the election of Hassan Rouhani as president. Unfortunately, many in the United States, including our administration, many in Western Europe, have interpreted Rouhani's election as indicating that there's a new chance to negotiate with the regime over the nuclear weapons program. This is false, it's delusional, it's dangerous. And in fact, we know from Rouhani's own mouth that his experience as the regime's chief nuclear negotiator in 2003-2005 was a long record of deceit, deception, and delay. And the circumstances that the regime faced then were critical, because it had run into enormous technical difficulties at the uranium conversion facility at Esfahan and further difficulties at uranium enrichment. So the regime came up with a device that it has used successfully for 10 years, which is to dangle in front of the gullible West the idea that the regime would renounce nuclear weapons but would be allowed to continue its uranium enrichment program. This has been a successful tool to negotiate with successive regimes in Europe and the United States. And what it has done, and what Rouhani confessed to in 2006 when he left the chief negotiator's job, and what he repeated just a few weeks ago in the last debate in Iran, was that their entire diplomatic strategy during his period as the chief negotiator was a ruse, and that he had duped the Europeans and the Americans to get what a nuclear proliferator needs more than anything else, and that's time to overcome the difficult scientific and technological challenges that stand in the would-be proliferator's way. We can predict with a near absolute certainty that with Rouhani as president, but as he did in 2003-2005, taking the Ayatollah Khamenei's direction, that more efforts will be made to induce the West to believe that the uranium enrichment program is being suspended, because now the regime wants to break the Western sanction. but which have not slowed down the nuclear weapons program in the slightest. I think this is a time of maximum vulnerability for the West, for the people of Iran, for all of those that don't want this regime to have nuclear weapons. If we fall for the same line that Rouhani peddled successfully 10 years ago, we will find that the regime has nuclear weapons in very short order. The answer, of course, the only answer, is that the policy of the West, and in particular of my country, the United States, has to be not to negotiate with Rouhani, but to overthrow Rouhani. The United States and others should provide tangible assistance to the Iranian opposition. We should take care that the regime is not able to use it for its own propaganda purposes. But make no mistake, the only long-term solution to the regime's effort to get nuclear weapons is to change the regime. We have the capability to do it. Everybody in this room knows the regime is unpopular. Now is the time not to bend to the regime, not to fall for their lies once again, but to adopt a policy of changing the regime in Tehran. Thank you very much.
Now it is my great pleasure to introduce to you yet another former Speaker of the House of Representatives, this time from the state of Illinois, Dennis Hastert. Speaker Hastert.
Good evening to you. It's my honor to be here, but I want to say, first of all, you've heard many great speeches this afternoon. But I want to hear from you. I want to talk about a couple things that I think are very important that I'm going to ask you to do something. First of all, you know, it's an irony that we talk about a people in a prison called liberty. What does that mean? We talk about rocket attacks on innocent people, but yet it happens. A country that is a nuclear threat and an exporter of terrorism, and that threatens the free world, and yet we tolerate it. But I'm going to ask you a question. You are represented by your brave president, but who speaks for free Iran? 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 Then there's a job to do for you. You saw all these people on this stage, 100 people, representing countries from all over the world. Ladies and gentlemen, today we've heard many people, and we've heard a great cause, and we've heard of a people that are in prison. But yet I look across this great room and I see thousands of free Iranians, thousands of people that can assemble here and wave your national flag. There are thousands more that aren't here. Thousands more free Iranians. You need to be a voice. You can write, you can call, you can Twitter, you can blog, you can use the social media. You can write op-eds to every newspaper virtually in every free country. But you must be the voice of free Iran. You must go from this hall and carry your message to the free people of the world. When the people of the United States, when the people of Great Britain, when the people of Germany hear about the plight of your people, the people of the world will stand up and say, we will not tolerate this. You go forward. I am reminded of an old folk song, a spiritual in the United States. The words are, let my people go. Let my people go. You are the voice of free Iran. Let your people go. God bless you.
Thank you very much. And now it's my privilege to introduce to you the former United States Secretary of Homeland Security and former Governor of the state of Pennsylvania, Tom Ridge.
Hello, thank you. We've come a long way together. We haven't reached the top of the mountain. We have to keep climbing. Are you ready to climb? I say to my government, and you are not a friend of the MEK. One of the extraordinary things that has happened over the past couple of years is my country, beginning with the surrender of their weapons by the men and women of the MEK, have given these men and women, these soldiers for freedom, promises, public promises, repeated promises. They began when they surrendered their weapons, and we assured them that they would be protected under the Geneva Convention as protected persons. It has continued up until a couple of months ago, when even after they moved to Camp Liberty, they were assured by the government of the United States of America, assured that we would provide for their safety and security. We made you a promise. We haven't kept it. You have been betrayed. We gather today to call for action, to plead to the United States and to the Western world loudly, clearly, and consistently support the democratic opposition in Iran, the MEK, and provide for the safety and security of the men and women at Liberty and Ashraf. It's a call to action. It's a call to keep a promise, a bond once made between like-minded democratic people. Because for all of us who love freedoms, for all who fight for democracy, the shared bond and values of liberty run deep. No matter how ruthless and violent this despotic, repressive regime in Tehran and its allies may be, it will never sear from the hearts and minds of the MEK the aspiration, the dream, the goal to live in a free, tolerant, compassionate, open, and democratic Iran. Iraq and Iran can conspire to imprison, exile, torture, rocket, murder the men and women of Ashraf and Liberty, but they will never, and I repeat, never, extinguish or terminate their commitment to a cause greater than themselves. They are freedom fighters, and we must continue to climb on their behalf to reach the pinnacle of the mountain, but there are 2 more steps to go. You've assembled representatives from, they've said, 50 countries, with the presidents of citizens and public officials from around the world. The UN Declaration of Human Rights reminds us that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and in right. My own country's Declaration of Independence is very relevant to our gathering today, where it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And for this gathering today, we take inspiration from the words and message of Madame Rajavi, who has said, freedom is the most precious of all jewels. Freedom is the source of progress. For us, freedom is an ideal, it is a belief. The people of Camp Liberty need to know that those of us who enjoy the blessings of liberty and freedom are united in support of their heroic and courageous quest for freedom. They need to know that their cause is our cause. May God be with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure now to introduce to you the former director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Louis Freeh.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, all of you. God bless you all. What a wonderful audience. You have been magnificent. You have been just magnificent. Your patience, your enthusiasm, your dedication, your love for liberty. We are really moved by your presence, and your patience is terrific. Let me just make a few short statements and a few very short messages. 69 years ago, a few days ago, as you know, an Allied force landed here in France, penetrated Fortress Europe, and freed millions of people from slavery and Holocaust. What I want to say particularly tonight to the brothers and sisters in Camp Ashraf who are under grave threat, grave stress, that help is on the way and you should never, 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 never give up. We have two goals. One is a short-term and one is a long-term goal. The short-term goal is to guarantee the protection and safety of the men and women in camps Ashraf and Liberty. This has been a slow process. This has been a frustrating process. This has been a bureaucratic process. And the United States, along with the UN and along with our European friends, bear the responsibility for the slowness and the pace at which this rescue is taking place, as we saw on June 15th. The most important thing for our governments is not to stop under the illusion that a moderate has now been elected as president of Iran. Well, we know a little bit about this moderate. We know that this moderate was the national security advisor to the president when the IRGC blew up Khobar Towers and murdered 19 Americans in 1996. We know that this moderate was the defender, engineer, and supervisor of the Iranian atomic energy weapons program. So we should make no mistake and have no hesitation about the threat as it persists and as it continues. The IRGC and the enemies in the regime in Tehran, with their co-conspirators in Baghdad and in the al-Maliki government, pose a grave and immediate threat not just to the residents of camps Ashraf and Liberty, but to all freedom-loving people in the region. We can go back to the Marine Corps barracks bombing in 1983. 241 American Marines were killed. 41 French servicemen were killed by Hezbollah acting as the agent of Iran. Khobar Towers in 1996 was a repeat. So we are dealing with a very ferocious, a very unrelenting enemy. The last thing for us to do at this point is to relent under the illusion that there is a moderate who will now bring talks and rationality to a process that not only does he not control, but does not subscribe to. The second point, and the last point I want to make, is the point that comes from my experience as a policeman for many years, as a prosecutor and as an investigator. We should send a message, and we send a message again tonight, to the murderers in Ashraf, to the murderers in Camp Liberty, to the so far anonymous people that set off those 40 rockets that killed 2 people and wounded many. Justice will be achieved. They will be found, they will be prosecuted, and they will be convicted for those crimes. As with the Khobar indictment, the Khobar indictment is pending in the United States of America against 19 defendants, almost all of whom are in Iran. Someday, we say this to the residents, particularly tonight as they hear us, those people, as the murderers in Ashraf and Liberty, will also be brought to justice. So we say to you tonight, God bless you, God protect you and your friends and families, and justice will be served.
Thank you very much, Director Free. Now, if I will ask the former president of the German Bundestag to come forward, Professor Rita Sussmuth.
Very short, but however, it's a big honor to be with you. And let me express, when I speak here in the name of our German group, I can tell you that this group is very active, not only parliamentarians, but a lot of people of the civil society committed for the concerns of the Iranian people, and especially engaged to help people at Ashraf, at Camp Liberty. So that's an important message. We are here as a group bringing you also the support of 70 parliamentarians in a book what was given to Madame Rajavi. And my concern is a special one this evening. Yes, we need resistance, and it's hard to make resistance when there is not enough acceptance and not enough willingness really to change the regime. So thank all of you, because you need this cohesion, this belonging to, not only in people from the Iranian country, but also from all over the world. Thank you very much for your support, and we hope, as we are increasing from month to month, that we will give enough support for our common concerns, for our common goals. And the second concern is the situation at Camp Liberty is very, very dangerous. It's not enough to have good words, to have good intentions. We need action. We have to show their activities in terms of more security. They have nothing to be safe and more secure. And so we have to show that really people in danger, people who are risking their lives, who were killed, that they can hope. So let's stay together. Let's hope together. Let's act together. And all the best for people in Ashraf and Liberty and for the Iranian people. Thank you.
It's my pleasure now to introduce another person who has stood with the people of Iran and who has stood with the Iranian resistance, the former member of the United States Senate from New Jersey, Senator Robert Torricelli.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got a question, and I need an answer. Can an election where a dictator chooses who gets to run ever be legitimate? Can a regime which kills innocent people of its own blood, the fruit of Iran and liberty, ever have a legitimate right to rule? Can the mullahs who have forced its children into poverty, women into prostitution, drugs on the streets of Tehran, ever have a right to rule the great people of Iran? Do we want regime change or just a change? Is it enough to just change faces of the dictators? Do we want an election where the people choose their own candidates and make their own choice? I want all of us to speak to those people in Camp Liberty and the brave 100 in Ashraf who hear our voices now. In every struggle of every nation, there's a long and difficult road that gets traveled. Make no mistake, for 100 years, the school children of Iran will learn that the road to Iranian freedom led through Camp Ashraf and Camp Liberty. To those brave 100 who stand alone in Ashraf, to those 3,100 who have faced suffering and oppression in liberty, you are the point of the spear. Generations will admire what you did, your courage, your bravery, your belief in the Iranian people, that you never gave up. You never gave up. You stood strong in the face of the mullahs. We admire you, and we will never, ever forget you. And finally, I want us all to make this pledge. We will come back, we will stand up, we will fight until the last of these mullahs has seen the gates of hell. The victory of liberty, the victory of justice. We will win this fight as sure as you are here today. We will see the mullahs fall. A liberty will be restored in Iran. God bless you all.
Thank you so much. I'd like to introduce to you next another former member of Congress who was also most known as the former director of the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, Director Peter Goss.
Thank you. Let me tell you how happy I am to be here to have a live audience. I congratulate you for your spirit, your sacrifice, and your endurance, because it is truly remarkable. The MEK is not a terrorist organization. I apologize it took so long to get the State Department to admit it. One of the things I also do know about terrorist organizations is there is one leading in Tehran right now, the Ayatollah and his cronies. I truly hope it does not take us as long to convince the White House and the State Department that they indeed are a terrorist organization. Your help has been great. You've got to keep it up. We've got work to do. Tehran is dangerous not only to the Iranian people, it's very dangerous to the whole world. And that's one of the reasons you see this extraordinary, this amazing outpouring of dignitaries, of serious people, decision makers from all over the world coming forward to address the issue, your issue for which you have sacrificed so much. Now, we know that the presidential election you've just had in Iran was remarkable for one thing. It was a very obvious hoax. As Newt Gingrich said, is a puppet with a smile better than a puppet with a frown? We all know the puppet is the Ayatollah's puppet. The extraordinary list of people here today is complemented only by the extraordinary broadening in depth and breadth of the resistance movement. I have been addressing audiences for several years since the great atrocity at Camp Ashraf. I have seen the movement grow. I have seen the leadership lead brilliantly, heroically. I have sadly seen the wall. I know what the price has been. I know what the cost of this truly is. And that is something we must never forget as we go forward. We have had an awful lot of help from the resistance movement, understanding what is going on and understanding what the path forward will be. President Rajavi has given us 10 points. I have 4 more to add for what I will call today's policy. The first one I would think would be the question of testing the new president. And frankly, we don't expect much on that score. I think that it is self-evident that there is agreement on that point from what you've seen today. Secondly, and I think this is very important, furthering your actions to isolate and discredit the Ayatollah and his regime in the court of world opinion. That's working. It's getting attention. It's not just the lanes of commerce and traffic where you're making an advantage. It's across the globe, as you see, with the attention that is happening. Third, and I think this is very important for people who care about national security, we have to proactively neutralize the terrorist elements acting on this regime's behalf, whether they be the Hezbollah or the IRGC or the Quds Force or the yet-to-be-identified proxy killers like those who rocket bombed, not once, but twice, or maybe more, Camp Liberty. And finally, and this is most important, and you know it because this is the reason we're all here, to encourage and support the legitimate opposition resistance in all that they do. You've succeeded in bringing attention in very high offices around the globe to the true plight of the Iranian people. You've paid a very high price, as I've said. The regime change must come. The Ayatollah and the mullahs cannot ignore the force of the resurgence of the legitimate opposition. It's not going to go away. It's going to go onward to freedom, and it's going to go forward now. God bless you. Good luck. We're with you.
I'd like to invite two speakers to come up. General James Conway, who is the 34th Commandant of the Marine Corps, and General Chuck Wald, former Deputy Commander of U.S. European Command Headquarters.
Thank you, folks. I was one of those generals in Iraq who saw the MEK. It was an unusual relationship. I watched it go to tragic. What I want to talk to you folks about just briefly is how do you win? How does a resistance movement prove successful? Down through the ages, there have been hundreds of them, every era, every country. Many more have failed than have succeeded, but for those that have succeeded, there is a methodology. So how do you win? First, you must have a cause. The cause will give you moral ascendancy. The cause will rally people to your colors. There can be no better cause than freedom and liberty for the people in Iran. But that you want to take it to your brothers and sisters is a great thing. Secondly, you need to have strong and capable leadership. People with a vision. People who see the big picture. People who know where to take the organization. I am convinced that you have that in Madame Rajavi. To win, you need allies, friends, and partners. Ladies and gentlemen, you saw the stage earlier this afternoon. Those people are there to give you sustenance and support when you need it. You need dedicated and loyal followers. That's you. There are over 100,000 people here today. Successful revolutions have started with much less than that. So you have that critical mass of strong and ardent support. You need frontline troops. Those are the people in Ashraf, at Liberty, and your brothers and sisters on the streets of Tehran. Some of them will die. That's the nature of being a frontline troop. It's your plight to honor and pay tribute to their sacrifice and to memorialize them when indeed you are successful. Those are the tangible things that your organization has. However, I suggest to you, your success or failure will be dependent upon the intangible. It is your determination and your perseverance to see this whole thing through. You can succeed, and indeed you must succeed if someday you're to walk the streets of Tehran. God bless you all.
I do promise to be short, but I will just say that, first of all, I'd like to congratulate President-elect Madam Rajavi for being delisted. I think that's significant, and some of the part we played is important. But I would like to say one thing, that I'm here with 5 other general officers of who I respect immensely. General Jim Jones is my mentor. We believe in freedom. We believe in the freedom of individuals. And I think the reason I'm here today is because you stand for the same thing, freedom and dignity and honor. So I wish the best to you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General Conway and Wald. Now I'd like to introduce to you a former Homeland Security Advisor to President George W. Bush, Francis Townsend.
Thank you very much. Salam alaikum. Many of my American colleagues in particular have spoken eloquently about the many injustices, the lack of protection at Liberty and Ashraf, Kobler and Maliki's deception and duplicity, and the tragic and unnecessary loss of life. I share their outrage at these events, but I thought I would take a moment to speak to another point. I am going to speak to the women in Ashraf and Liberty, and to their sisters here today. My sisters, you are the heart and soul of the resistance, more than any other freedom movement around the world. Women are the memory and the inspiration of this movement. Like Mrs. Rajavi, they lead and they direct it. They are among you. They are around you. Women in Iran, in Ashraf and Liberty, fight for the same rights as other women around the world. You fight each day for justice and equality, and we fight with you. The wall of martyrs over here is a somber reminder, but those lost to us will never lose their voice, because we hear their cries and we become their voice to the world. Today, there is another great Persian poet like Ferdowsi, writing another 50,000 verses of Iranian history, another Shahnameh. And the courage and the commitment of the people here today, those in Liberty and Ashraf, those of the MEK, and that of Mrs. Rajavi, will be captured in that next 50,000 verses. The voices of those who have been lost in this struggle will never be lost to history. God bless you, and God bless those we've lost.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Ambassador Robert Joseph to step forward. He is the former U.S. Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security.
Well, good evening. It is a true honor for me to join with you today in your demand for a democratic, a secular, and a non-nuclear Iran, and of most immediate concern in your demand for the safety and security of your brothers and sisters in Camp Liberty, held hostage in Iraq. Last week's sham election, as others have already pointed out, but having watched personally Mr. Rouhani's approach when he was head of the nuclear negotiations now some 10 years ago, I know his objectives are the same objectives as those of his predecessor, and that is to continue the quest for nuclear weapons. He knows how to play the West, and he will continue to play the West, and he will do it well until the West realizes that it is a fantasy in terms of him being a reformer. This disguise must not be allowed to provide more time to complete the remaining steps, the few remaining steps, before Iran can have a nuclear weapon. The mullahs have pursued negotiations as a game, and they have won. They have gained over a decade of time to pursue the program. From my experience, what stands out is the enormous value that the mullahs place on nuclear weapons, because such weapons will allow them the confidence to pursue their aggressive agenda in Syria and beyond without fear of consequence. This is a regime without legitimacy. It is a regime that is despised by its own citizens. As with all authoritarian governments, the people of Iran are the greatest threat to the survival of the regime. And it's also why regime change is the only sound policy. Appeasement and accommodation will not work. The murderous attacks on the defenseless civilians at Camp Liberty reflect the mullahs' fears of the resistance movement represented here today. Under the leadership and wisdom of Madam Rajavi, you are the ones who will play the central role in achieving the objective of all of us who support democracy and human rights in Iran. It's a privilege to join forces with you in your cause of freedom. Thank you very much, and God bless you.